By now, we know the story. The World Cup is decided in moments. The qualification process from far-flung destinations all across the Asia-Pacific through to the eventual testing environment of the tournament itself. But those moments aren't just decided by grit and spirit. The moments are decided by individuals themselves. Redmayne in 22, Jedinak in 18, and so on and so forth. So who in 2026 will pick up the mantle? Who will qualify Australia for the 2026 FIFA World Cup? That is the big question, and there are many icons in the media world in the Australian football landscape. However, it would be remiss of me not to have a little reunion with the man I'm inviting on in Mr. Cody Ojeda, because we have done, I want to think about this. Back for Front Page Football, we did the pre-qualifying for 2022. We did a World Cup show ourselves at the time under a label you had. We then did the 2023 Home Women's World Cup, and have done basically, as much Socceroos or Matildas related content in and around both of those cycles. Now jumping into 2026, there was actually only one option, but to get Cody Ojeda here with me today. So Cody, firstly, how are you? And how are you feeling ahead of match day 9 and 10?
First of all, how am I? That's a very nostalgic reflection on our work together, and
Yes.
I sometimes I don't sit and think back how long I've actually been doing some of this for. It's like, I know the World Cup's coming up, but it hasn't actually dawned on me yet that when that comes around, it's the second World Cup that I would have gone through that I've in a way covered, which is crazy to think about. How confident am I feeling, or how am I feeling going into the next games? I'll be real with you, I'm not feeling very good.
Okay.
I'm probably sitting on the pessimistic side of things, unfortunately. But every time the Socceroos are in action, it's always a good time. So there's always a bit of hope.
Well, that most certainly is a take, and I'll tell you why. Because I talk about those men in moments and the way it happens. I think the big story here is, yeah, we'll have a moment at some point, whether it be in Perth, whether it be in Jeddah, whether it be in round 4. God hope it's not in round 4. There will be that moment, right? But it's so multifaceted in this regard, in that it could be basically out of our hands that moment is provided. That moment could be provided at, I think, 2 or 3 a.m. Western Australian time in the aftermath of that Perth kickoff, next week, where Bahrain score against the Saudis, and that clinches a 3 or 4 point lead that can't really be over. They can't surpass us. Saudi can't surpass us. I'm so bad with words.
It doesn't even need to be a goal. It could just be, and more likely of it. Bahrain just holding Saudi 2-0 all.
Yeah, no, exactly right. So with that in mind, though, you're actually on the pessimistic side. So I will pass over to you. We know Japan's squad is definitely on the weaker side, but I think it's only weak in the sense that there's not a lot of national team experience. These guys straight out of Europe and the J-League will be an absolute mission to surpass. So I'm assuming just on Japan's known quality on the whole is where you go into this Perth game feeling rather worried.
I don't know if I've ever felt confident playing against Japan, at least in the last 10 years. The young Socceroos beating them in, I think it was March now, was it? That was a shock to me. It was a great shock. I'll definitely welcome it, but it was still very much a shock. You look at this Japan side on paper. I know they've rotated. You got no Matoma, no Ueda. A lot of their main strikers have taken a backward, or not a backward step, but they've taken a step out, probably just to give them a rest. They've already qualified for the World Cup. Or you got Notice or Doan, but you still got quality. You look at the places these guys are playing. You got obviously some of the top performers in the J League. You got Serie A, still there's Premier League quality in there, Championship, top division of Netherlands, Germany as well. If we had players, we barely have the quality at that level. It's a tough one, because I know what gets Australia through isn't necessarily our on-field quality. It's, I guess, how we can kind of come together, that camaraderie, that Aussie DNA, as Graham Hunt would like to call it. But Japan, their quality on paper is so stacked. I never feel confident going into a game against them. And the reality is, there's a lot of riding on that first game. I'm not going to say it's impossible to get a result, and I think if we are going to go through the World Cup at this stage, that game in Perth is paramount. That's a funny word to use considering where it would be shown. But But yeah, it's a tough one. I think there's a path to victory if we get our core defensive responsibilities right. We've got the right coach for it in that regard. But I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, we're going to have that moment in Perth, because we're playing against the best side in Asia. And even if it's their B team or A- team, because there are still some quality players in there. You still got Wataru Endo, Zion Suzuki, sorry, he's still come down. It's still a brilliant side. Their B side is probably still probably the second best team in Asia. So it's not a foregone conclusion, and I am not going to sit here and say I'm confident we're going to do this, because if I'm honest with you, I'm not, and I don't want to lie to you, Matt, and I don't want to lie to myself either.
Yeah, no. I just think the reputation alone speaks for itself. You go into this game and you just kind of feel that rush of we know what's going on from a Socceroos perspective. We know what's going right. We know where the excitement lies, but you cannot get complacent like that against this opponent, and that's ultimately the overriding feeling. Let's talk points. Let's talk the table. This is really big for me, because where I'm at mentally with this is that Saudi game. For me, it just has to be all about parking the bus and, basically defending for our lives. Because I feel that no matter how the Japan game plays out, no matter how Bahrain's game with Saudi plays out, I just feel like a draw will be enough. I'm just in my heart of hearts, I just feel like that draw will be enough. It's a 3-point buffer right now. And, unless they go out and smoke, Bahrain by a few goals and we have a loss against Japan, maybe the situation's a bit different there. But there's so many variables that would have to go, Saudi's way. With the way they've been playing, they've only scored the 4 goals. I just can't, for me, sense that it'll overwhelmingly swing in their direction. They still have so much to work out under Herve Renard. And that 3-point buffer is doing so much for me right now,
And it's not something to discount, and the reality is we get some form of result against Japan, or Saudi failed to get a win against Bahrain. It changes the course of things. If we've got a 3-point buffer going into that Saudi Arabia game, we're in good stead, because it's basically just don't get smacked. But if we need to expect even a draw, Jeddah is not an easy place to go to. It's one of the toughest away trips that you'll do in Saudi Arabia. And look, it's one that Australia's probably exceeded expectations in the last few years, but it's not something that I want to go in with riding on like, we need to get something out of this, because if we need to get something out of it, Saudi Arabia need to get something out of it too. I had to back one of those two in a do or die game in Saudi Arabia, in Jeddah, in front of 60,000 or so odd people. You've got to lean towards Saudi Arabia. They've got good quality. They've got home crowd behind them. It's not a place that I want to go to, and it's not a place that I back ourselves if we're playing a must win. It's a situation we were in. No, it wasn't a situation we were in last time. We were already out by then. But either way, it's not a fun place to go to, and I'm not putting stocks in us getting a result in that situation, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I would say that even because obviously 2 draws is enough to send us through, right? Regardless of what Saudi's result is against Bahrain, just the 2 points on the line. And I think even a draw in Perth, we just go there with confidence. We go there with confidence, and Tony Popovich is someone with a management portfolio where I could say, like, I just know he can get the job done. Let's not forget, he won a continental title on Saudi Arabian soil. Like, I feel like he's...
That's true, and it'll be the same stadium, isn't it?
No, that was Riyadh.
It's King Fahd. Yes, wrong one.
Yes.
Wrong king. Apologies to the Saudi Arabian community.
Is it Abdullah? Is Jeddah Abdullah?
Sport City.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah,
that's right.
It's funny because you got a coach that has shown with Australia that he can match it with Japan, then actually take a step towards them on their turf. So hopefully, we're doing the same thing on ours. And yeah, I didn't actually count the fact that, he's been in Saudi Arabia, he's faced that kind of atmosphere, and he knows how to manage his players through, and he's got a much higher quality side at his hands now than what he had with the Wanderers, and he's probably going up the same level of quality in terms of his opponents. So look, it's not out of the question. I just don't think we'd be favourites.
No, I get it, but I reflect on, even when things were really bad for us, right? Like, let's not forget, the campaign started losing to Bahrain and drawing Indonesia. And I remember I was talking to Ian Polzinski, and one of our old colleagues at Front Page Football, and I said to him, I literally said to him at the time, with the way Mancini and Saudi are going, this is a window of opportunity for the Socceroos, no matter what. And I still look at the fact that Hervé Renard struggled. Right, he came in with the loss to Indonesia, where Marcelinho Ferdinand was prime Barcelona style and just completely floored, that team to the ground. And I look at that and I think, as experienced as he is, as much as those players would want to give a lot for him, as much as, I think their squad retention in relation to most of the continent compares, I look at it and I think to myself, they're still going to struggle to be on that front foot if we're holding us and going on the back foot. And again, this is off the back of only needing a draw in Perth, Cody. So, I look at it and I just think everything lines up enough in the Socceroos' favour for the pessimism and the we're going to finish third element of this to really come through. The scale of it has to be pretty remarkable. It has to basically require, not two straight losses, because I think obviously 1 point wouldn't be enough, but it would require a pretty demoralising result in either game, no matter what. And it would require Saudi to hit form and an experimental Japanese side to hit form as well. There's enough in that sense where I'm kind of getting away from it, but I think we've said
no, you're on the right track, because you're saying it requires either then to hit form. I reckon Saudi Arabia will hit form. That's where my argument comes in.
Yeah.
They've had the 2 games under Hervé Renard. They had the they beat China at home. They had a draw with Japan away. Obviously Japan qualified by then. There's nothing to say that they're going to go to Bahrain, they'll get the result they need, and then they look at Australia. If we drop points, it's like, all we need to do is win. Doesn't matter about goal difference, doesn't matter what's happened before. And let's just say we get a draw or lose to Japan. It doesn't need to be Saudi Arabia smacking us. It could be them smacking Bahrain, and their goal difference turns on his head too.
Yeah, look, I take your point. I do also want to chat a bit more broadly about the AFC and about Group C, and we don't have a whole lot of time, so I'm actually just going to roll this onto the situation and the formulation and everything like that, and run the conversation back to our men in moments, my big intro at the start there, we didn't really touch on it, and the squad itself. I know we've only got the training camp in Abu Dhabi at the moment, but I really want you to embrace it, okay? Mila Jedinak under Ange Postecoglou, John Aloisi in 06, Jimmy Mackay in 74, and of course Andrew Redmayne's heroics under Graham Arnold, who is the man in the moment in 2026, the 2026 cycle.
If you're looking at something that happens in the Japan game, I'd probably liken it to Iraq in 2014, where it was purely just a tactical sub, and we just started peppering balls in the box. Josh Kennedy, great player, but probably not the standout striker at that time, of course, and it was the one that I was able to pop up. I honestly wouldn't be surprised, and you'll love this because it'd actually be a little bit of sentiment for you, like just not a top class striker that we've had.
You're going to say Adam Taggart?
Yeah, I'm going to say Adam Taggart. Like someone that he's good, maybe not great by Socceroos standards, but someone who can definitely do a job on his day. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets subbed on 65th, 70th minute. They gave him a few balls, maybe a cutback cross. He comes in, poaches finish. He's a hero in his hometown. I actually can see a scenario like that playing out. And it may not qualify us for the World Cup straight away, but if the reality is we beat Japan, and it's a big if, because I understand the task at hand to do that. We haven't done, I think you was talking about it offline the other day, it's been since 2009 that the senior men's Socceroos have beaten Japan, which is ridiculous. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a scenario like that. And it creates that moment, like as much as, maybe we've got to wait for Bahrain to result, or we've got to get through the Saudi Arabia game. If we beat Japan, I don't see a path for Saudi Arabia to qualify ahead of us. Like I said, big if. But you'd still look at that moment and go, that's what qualified us for the World Cup, because it put the scenario beyond doubt. And for the first time, we've actually been able to go into the final game of a qualifying process like, yep, we're set. We're okay. So I can see a scenario like that maybe playing out. I do think this Japan side is still going to be ridiculously good, though.
Yeah. Look, I love the Taggart shout for very, very obvious reasons.
I'm looking at our squad. I'm looking who's a forward that isn't like a guaranteed nailed-on starter, or like our superstar, one that, like, if I said Aaron Kunta, it would be a bit of a normie thing. He's not even probably going to be in the squad. But like, if I'm talking to someone with that name, it's kind of what you expect. I think it's going to be someone that's probably not the first person thing of. It could be even someone like Brandon Borello. For all I know, like I wouldn't be surprised if it's something like I'm talking that kind of caliber, like an
Yeah.
A-Leagues player.
Yeah, no,
In a way.
well, but the